The Hundred Races Part 1 by Il Bosser Easter. Before you read, how do we judge the people around us? By their money, wealth, and possessions? Or is there in something of more enduring value to look for in a person? This story is a sensitive account of how a poor young girl is judged by her classmates. Venda Petronsky is a young Polish girl who goes to school with other American children in an American town. These other children see Wanda as different in many ways. Can you guess how they treat her? Read the information in the box below. Find out more about this community or about a related topic from an encyclopedia or the internet. The Polish American community in the United States. The first Polish immigrants arrived in America in 1608, but the largest wave of Polish immigration occurred in the early 20th century when more than 1 million Poles migrated to the United States. The Polish state it did not exist at that time, and the immigrants were identified according to their country of origin rather than their ethnicity. They were identified as Russian Poles, German Poles, Austrian Poles. One of the most notable Polish American communities is in Chicago and its suburbs, so Chicago is sometimes called the second largest Polish city in the world, next only Warsaw, the capital of Poland. Polish Americans were sometimes discriminated against in the United States as were the Irish, Italians and Jews. According to United States 2000 census, 6,77,414 Americans of age 5 years and older reported Polish as the language spoken at home, which is about 1.4% of the people who speak languages other than English, or 0.25% of the US population. Today, Monday, Venda Petronsky was not in her seat, but nobody, not even Peggy and Maddie, the girls who started all the fun, noticed her absence. Usually, Wanda sat in the seat next to the last seat in the last row in room 13. She sat in the corner of the room where the rough boys who did not make good marks sat, the corner of the room where there was most coupling of feet, most roars of laughter when anything funny was said, and most mud and dirt on the floor. Wanda did not sit there because she was rough and noisy. On the contrary, she was very quiet and rarely said anything at all, and nobody had ever heard her laugh out loud. Sometimes she twisted her mouth into a crooked sort of smile, but that was all. Nobody knew exactly why Wanda sat in that seat unless it was because she came all the way from Bogin's Heights. All her feet were usually caked with dry mud, but no one really thought much about Venda Petronsky once she sat in the corner of the room. The time when they thought about Venda was outside the school hours, at noontime when they were coming back to school, or in the morning early before school began, when groups of 2 or 3 or even more would be talking and laughing on their way to the schoolyard. And sometimes they waited for Wanda to have fun with her. The next day, Tuesday, Wanda was not in school either, and nobody noticed her absence again. But on Wednesday, Peggy and Maddie, who sat down front with other children who got good marks and who did not track in a whole lot of mud, did notice that Wanda wasn't there. Peggy was the most popular girl in school. She was pretty, she had many pretty clothes, and her hair was curly. Maddie was her closest friend. The reason Peggy and Maddie noticed Wanda's absence was because Wanda had made them late to school. They had waited and waited for Wanda to have some fun with her, and she just hadn't come. They often waited for Venda Petronsky to have fun with her. Venda Petronsky, most of the children in the room 13 did not have names like that. They had names easy to say like Thomas, Smith, or Alan. There was one boy named Bounce, Willie Bounce, and people thought that was funny, but not funny in the same way what Petronsky was. Wenda did not have any friends. She came to school alone and went home alone. She always wore a faded blue dress that did not hang right. It was been ironed properly. She did not have any friends, but a lot of girls talked to her. Sometimes they surrounded her in the schoolyard as she stood watching the little girls play hopscotch on the worn, hard ground. Wenda Petronsky, Peggy, would say in the most courteous manner as though she were talking to Miss Masoon. Wenda, she had say, giving one of her friends a nudge, tell us, how many dresses did you say you had hanging up in your closet? 100, Wanda would said. 100, exclaimed all the little girls incredulously. The little ones would stop playing hopscotch and listen. Yeah, 100, all lined up, said Wanda. Then her thin lips drew together in silence. What are they like? All silk, I bet, said Peggy. Yeah, all silk, all colors, violet too. Yeah, violet too, 100 dresses, Wanda would repeatedly, sturdily, all lined up in my closet. Then they had to let her go, and then before she had gone very far, they could not help bursting into shrieks and peals of laughter. The 100 dresses, obviously, the only dress Wenda had was the blue one she wore every day. So, why did she say she had 100? What a story! How many shoes did you say you had? 60 pairs, all lined in my closet. Cries of exaggerated politeness greeted this, all alike. Oh no, every pair is different. All colors, all lined up. Peggy, who had thought up this game, and Maddie, her inseparable friends, always the last to leave. Finally, Wenda would move up the street, her eyes dull and her mouth closed, hitching her left shoulder every now and then in the funny way she had. Finishing the walk to school alone, Peggy was not really cruel. She protected small children from bullies, and she cried for hours if she saw an animal mistreated. If anybody had said to her, "Don't you think that is cruel way to treat Wenda," she would have been very surprised. Cruel? Why did the girl say she had 100 dresses? Anybody could tell that was lie. Why did she want to lie? And she was not just an ordinary person. Else why she have a name like that? Anyway, they never made her cry. As for Maddie, this business of asking Wanda every day how many dresses and how many hats and how many this and that she had was bothering her. Maddie was poor herself. She usually wore some days somebody's hand-me-down clothes. That thank goodness she did not live up in Boginside or have a funny name. Sometimes when Peggy was asking Wanda those questions in that mocking polite voice, Maddie felt embarrassed and studied in the marbles in the palm of her hand, rolling them around and saying nothing herself. Not that she felt sorry for Wanda exactly. She would never have paid any attention to Wanda if Peggy had not invented the dresses game. But suppose Peggy and all the others started in on her next. She wasn't as poor as Wanda, perhaps, but she was poor. Of course, she would have more sense than to say she had 100 dresses. Still, she would not like for them to begin on her. She wished Peggy would stop teasing Wenda Petronsky. Today, even though they had been late to school, Maddie was glad she had not had to make fun of Wanda. She worked her arithmetic problems absent-mindedly. 8 times 8. Let's see. She wished she had the nerve or to write Peggy a note because she knew she never would have the courage to speak right to Peggy to say, "Hey Peg, let's stop asking Wenda how many dresses she has." When she finished her arithmetic, she did start a note to Peggy. Suddenly she paused and shuddered. She pictured herself in the schoolyard, a new target for Peggy and the girls. Peggy might ask her where she got the dress that she had on. The Maddie would have to say it was one of Peggy's old ones that Maddie's mother had tried to disguise with new trimmings, so on. No one in room 13 would recognize it. If only Peggy would decide of her own accord to stop having fun with Wanda. Oh well, Maddie ran her hand through her short blondie hair as though to push the uncomfortable thoughts away. What difference did it make? Slowly, Maddie tore into bits the note she had started. She was Peggy's best friend, and Peggy was the best liked girl in the whole school. Peggy could not possibly do anything that was really wrong, she thought. As for Wanda, she was just some girl who lived up on Bogin's side and stood alone in the schoolyard. She scarcely ever said anything to anybody. The only time she talked was in schoolyard about her 100 dresses. Maddie remembered her telling about one of her dresses, pale blue with colored trimmings, as she remembered, and another that was brilliant jungle green with red sash. You had looked like a Christmas tree in that, the girl had said in the pretended admiration. Thinking about Wenda and her 100 dresses all lined up in the closet, Maddie began to wonder who was going to win the drawing and coloring contest. For girls, this contest consisted of designing dresses for boys of designing motorboats. Probably Peggy would win the girls' medal. Peggy drew better than anybody else in the room. At least that's what everybody thought. She could copy a picture in a magazine or of film star's head so that you could almost tell who it was. Oh, Maddie was sure Peggy would win. Well, tomorrow the teacher was going to announce the winners, then they had to know. The next it was drizzling. Maddie and Peggy hurried to no school under Peggy's umbrella. Naturally, on a day like this, they did not wait for Wanda Petronsky on the corner of this Oliver Street, the street that far away under the railroad tracks and up the hill led to Bogin's side. Anyway, they were not taking chances on being late today because today was important. Do you think Miss Mason will announce the winners today? Asked Peggy. Oh, I hope so. The minute we get in, said Maddie. Of course, you will win, Peg. Hope so, said Peggy eagerly. The minute they entered the classroom, they stopped short and gasped. There were drawings all over the room, on every ledge and window's sill, dazzling colors and brilliant lavish designs, all drawn on great sheets of wrapping paper. There must have been 100 of them all lined up. These must be the drawings for the contest. They were. Everybody stopped and whistled or murmured admiringly. As soon as the class had assembled, Miss Masoon announced the winners. Jack Bagels had won for the boys, she said, and his design for an outboard motor was on exhibition in room 12, along with the sketches by all the other boys. As for the girls, she said, although just two sketches were submitted by most, one girl and room 13 should be proud of her. This one girl actually drew 100 designs, all different and all beautiful. In the opinion of the judges, any one of the drawings is worthy of winning the prize. I am very happy to say that Wanda Petronsky is the winner of the girls' medal. Unfortunately, Wanda was been absent from school for some days and is not here to receive the applause that is due to her. Let us hope she will be back tomorrow. Now, class, you may file around the room quietly and look at her exquisite drawings. The children burst into applause, and even the boys were glad to have a chance to stamp on the floor. But there fingers in their mouths and whistled, though they were not interested in dresses. Look, Peg, whispered Maddie. There's that blue one she told us about. Isn't it beautiful? Yes, said Peggy, and here's that green one, boy. And I thought I could.